Bark River Aurora. Now the Aurora is Bark River's knife. It's one of the ones in their bushcraft series. You can see they put a little bit of compass on there. That's a nice touch there, embellishment they put on it. And Bark River, see their stamp on there. I've had this knife for several years. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years, something like that. It's the 3V. 3V's probably my favorite steel from Bark River. They do 3V good from what I've seen and the experience I've had. This knife here's got a desert ironwood handle, no liners on it. But this is a really nice piece of desert ironwood in my opinion. Now you can get desert ironwood that's a lot prettier with a lot of figure in there. Burls and all kind of stuff and wavy grain. This is a good straight grain piece of wood like you would just pick for strength if you're just making a tool handle and you wanted the strongest tool handle. I like that. I think that'd be stronger than the other. So this knife here, the Auroras, they have about 4.5. It really says about 4.6, I think, in the stats that you read on it. So a little over 4.5 inch blade. And it's a spare point blade. So the blade's right in the middle, just like a bushcraft knife should be. So you can drill real good and stuff like that with it. And really fine tip for doing fine work on stuff. And there I'm going across the grain on that, but you can see that tip can just dig out stuff. A really fine tip for doing fine work, for crafting stuff out of wood. Really nice. And this knife here is one of my Bark Rivers that's made really well. It's made about as good as any of my other Bark Rivers. Now I've had some good luck with Bark River, and I've had some that's been deplorable, the fit and finish, and I've still kept them all, but I've had some that's not been too good on fit and finish at all. But this one here, there's nothing wrong with that knife. It's made real good. The plunge grinds right there is good on it. Everything's even on both sides, the grind heights and all that. That's one of the good Bark Rivers. Now this handle, the Aurora handle, is a very comfortable handle. It might be the most comfortable Bark River handle. Coke bottle shape. That swell right there. Now up here, it has just enough of a guard up there just to get your finger in that. Just to have an indent for your finger. And that's the way a bushcraft style knife is. But you can see when you choke up on that thing, it's putting the really close to where your hand is, where the cut is, the cutting edge. And that's good because you can put a lot of power right there. So that's a very good bushcrafting knife in my opinion. So the sheath on these, I don't know if they're still giving the same sheath out, because I've had this knife for a few years, but this was a decent sheath back in the day. I mean, it's the pouch style sheath, but the way they had the sandwich part right here, I liked a little bit better than some people really like where they do the taco style sheath, where they just wrap one piece. I like this because the way I was able to wet form it around right there, and so you can see where I've wet formed it. So the knife goes in there really nice, and I've showed this knife on videos before a little bit, but bar steel loop. So I like that sheath pretty good, and like I said, I did wet form it, and that's all I've done to it. Really comfortable handle in your hand, plenty big enough for my hand. If I had any gripe about it at all, depending on how you use it, if you're stabbing and all, that's a little bit weak of a guard to slide up on there, but in practicality, it's fine. You can really use this knife. It's dexterous. I mean, it'll peel an apple or anything. It's just made to use and do any kind of fine work with. Work of any kind. Really good for that. Sharpens up really nice. You know, it's 3V. Holds the edge long as I want it to. I've not really had trouble with rust on this knife. I keep it clean. I did have it rust when I wet formed the sheath, and I put water on it and put it in the sheath, and I didn't cover it. That's the first time I'd ever wet formed a sheath. Apple. So I had left the knife in the sheath, and I've told that story before. When I got it out, there's just red on there from rust, and I had to polish it down, and I just polished it down. Yeah, I just polished it down with baking soda that time. I've told that story before. But yeah, really usable knife, really good. Okay, so I showed that it do an apple or anything like that. And I showed that the tip's fine, you know, to carve with or do anything. See that? But of course, the thing is with the bushcraft knife, everybody wants the baton with it. It's got a little piece of wood here, just it's long, but it's not big. This knife with baton all day long. Convex grind. See, I'm just batoning up little pieces of kindling right now and everything. I'm not a big batoner. I just use an axe most of the time if I'm going to do any wood, but it's good to have a knife that'll do it, and people want to see that, so I'm showing you. This will baton out anything that a knife this size will do. You could skin something with that. The shape of blade's okay. It's for skinning and all that. It's not really made for that, but it'll feather stick like a dream. Really nice feather sticking knife, because that's what it's made for, is that type of stuff. Take this knife out, do bushcrafting, camp chores, feather sticking, stuff like that. It's made for that. The back of it's sharp enough to where it would strike a bar steel, a ferrocerium rod, but I don't really do that much with my knives. I don't even have that thing out here. I've showed doing it before with another bark river, but yeah, I mean, that's not the littlest. I wasn't even trying to make the littlest ones I could, but I'm just messing around and I made that. But yeah, this thing will feather stick really well. And it'll whittle. You know, you could whittle out any kind of tent pegs, sharpen them on the end. Any of that bushcraft type stuff, this knife excels at it. Really good for that. Yeah, that's sharp. Take the point off. So you can do any of that stuff. Any of the bushcraft stuff. You can cut up your food when you're out somewhere. Like I said, I've never tried to skin an animal with it, do that kind of work. I got other knives I do that with. This don't have a lot of belly, but it would do it. You could do anything you want to just fine with it. But this is one of the bark rivers that I've had good luck with and that I like really well. I like this design and I like this knife. And I think it's a really good bushcraft knife.